I'm going to move us on. It's my great pleasure to introduce to us Kateryna Schroeder, Senior Ag Economist at the World Bank, to listen to her presentation and the World Bank's perspective on this important topic of AI and digitization. So Kateryna is joining us online. So if the technology works.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation to present. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. So today I would like to offer some highlights from our upcoming report, Harnessing Artificial Intelligence for Agricultural Transformation. We're actually having a soft launch today at the World Bank. So the lead author, my colleague Parvati Krishnakumari, is engaged in that. So I'll represent the team, and the public launch for the report is planned for early September. This is when we can share the report. 3 years ago, we published a report that was more on data and digital agriculture overall, and how the promise it has to transform the agri-food sector through the applications of proliferation of data and application of digital innovations. And now, just 3 years later, AI is certainly amplifying that promise drastically. What is particularly valuable that we see, and we all know, is the advance of Gen AI, that can identify patterns in the massive amounts of data and information, which is particularly fitting for the complex problems that exist in agricultural sector that involves diverse data types. And we're talking about different images, for example, satellite images, text, various sensor data. And now Gen AI can develop testing scenarios by analyzing millions of data points on weather, soil condition, pests, diseases, and then analytical AI models can simulate those scenarios. And applications for this are endless. And as a testament to that, to the promise of AI in agriculture and Gen AI in agriculture, is reflected in the investments that are going into the technology. So for AI in agriculture, it's expected to grow from 1.5 billion in 2023 to over 10 billion by 2032. And Gen AI investment has skyrocketed from less than 5 billion in 2019 to over 20 billion in 2023. The applications of the AI in agriculture span the entire value chain. So starting from research and development and allowing for faster time for discovery and research, moving on to input supply, improved input targeting and efficiency, moving on to production and increased productivity, higher yields, and efficiency on the farm, post-harvest, reduced losses and improved quality, and then further on to distribution and logistics with increased market efficiency and reduced food and loss. Actually, in the report, we are highlighting 60 different use cases of the most promising AI applications in agriculture that are the most scalable and have been showing positive impact. And the report will also be launched jointly with the dashboard that would be easy to navigate and identify those different use cases. So for the sake of this presentation, I'll just touch upon a couple of use cases just to showcase, the breadth and the depth of applications of AI in agriculture that we see emerging. And the first one is the extension services, so AI-powered extension services. They have probably, we've seen this as the most promising use case. This is also possibly because we work a lot in the developing country context with the development of such extension services. So about 82% of our entire portfolio that goes into digital focuses on the extension services. Not all of those are AI enhanced. Actually, the fraction is still small, but overall, so we pay a lot of attention to this area, and we see some great impacts. And for the first time, we actually see that the countries that have accumulated a lot of data on soil, on pests, on weather, and all those foundational data sets that have been created can now be brought closer to the farmer in the very tailored, personalized approach, often in the local language and in a conversation manner. So two of examples that I wanted to highlight is the Digital Green AI powered chatbot. It has grown very rapidly in the last couple of years. It reached over 2.2 million farmers in 5 countries, and they're supporting over 40 crops in 6 languages. And they're providing correct answer to about 75 queries from the farmers. And of course, as the models get trained, they become more and more accurate. And the impact of that we've seen is that, first of all, the cost per farmer of such services has dropped drastically, while the yields have increased in some cases by 40%, as on the example you see on the slide. This is in Ethiopia.
Kateryna, just allow me to interrupt. I'm so sorry. I don't know if you're trying to move your slides on, but they haven't moved off the title screen since you began. So you might just want to see if that you can turn the slides over.
Yeah, I am moving them.
Okay, then it's a technical.
Catherine, could you just refresh the share screen again? The technician is telling me that you should. There we go. Now it's moving.
Okay. Now we see markets, distribution, and logistics, which I think is your next slide.
Oh, yeah, it is my next slide. Let me test if you can see. So now I'm switching back to extension. Do you see that?
Okay.
So on the extension services, another example is ISDA. This is virtual agronomists. So they've been serving AI-driven advice via WhatsApp in 7 African countries. And there we've also seen increase in yield and profit growth. This has been partially supported by the World Bank in our regional project. So in terms of, next area that I wanted to highlight is the markets, distribution, and logistics, and how AI is changing this segment of the value chain. So it's transforming the supply chain through advanced prediction, optimization, and traceability solutions. One of the case studies that I wanted to present is the Climate Lens platform. It is a global one that's operational in 50 countries. So it delivers very small-scale climate forecasts to agribusinesses and allows them to improve their predictions based on these forecasts, and which has resulted in up to 25% reduction in climate-related losses for the users. And then, of course, I wanted to include blockchain as part of the markets, distribution, and logistics, because up until AI, hype, there was a blockchain hype about improved traceability. And we see that being picked up in the private sector. But now what we see is this sort of marriage between blockchain and AI. And they're bringing in the next generation of the traceability systems in the agri-food sector. So blockchain provides the record and changeable record of the transaction, and then AI verifies the data and does the analytics around that. And then the last area that I wanted to highlight is around inclusive finance and risk mitigation, also because it is very important for us as the World Bank. So here, 2 things. One is AI-driven credit scoring. So using mobile usage, satellite imagery, and farm data to assess credit worthiness. And one of the examples that has reached 15 million farmers in Kenya is Mshwari. And then on the other side, it's AI-powered index insurance that has also been growing in the countries, maybe not so rapidly, but we see some of the positive impacts and use cases emerging. So the rest of the presentation I wanted to spend on discussion of what's holding AI back, and it's probably also be useful in the context of the following panel discussions, but to provide an overview. So to go back to the report that we wrote 3 years ago, just on digital ag, one of the bigger risks and issues that were holding back the digital development overall was the digital divide. It's still very much relevant for the AI sort of AI-powered transformation of the agri-food systems. So this is the map of AI preparedness index, and we have the usual suspects, so North America, EU, Australia, that are well prepared for the AI uptake in the agri-food systems, and then other countries that are lagging behind. So if we're looking at some of the more, the most critical issues that are constraining the advance of the AI, first is the connectivity and energy infrastructure. Both are absolutely essential for the AI, and they are non-negotiable for the system that rely on the cloud computing and whatnot. And but only 15% of rural Africa has internet access, comparing to 50% in urban areas. And then, of course, if we look at the developed world, that's a pretty stark difference. And then only 25 of the users in sub-Saharan Africa are actually using mobile coverage due to different reasons, such as affordability or literacy gaps, or so on. There is also the issue of the quality of networks, because there's also very much direct link to the capabilities of the AI in the particular setting. And high bandwidth 5G is rarely available in the rural settings in the developing country context. And then going to electricity, this is another big constraint. So for example, going back to Africa, over 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa are lacking that access. So that's on the negative note. On positive note, technology is evolving in different spheres, not just AI. Sometimes it's also AI powered, but we see the emergent technologies such as satellite internet that enable new connectivity pathways that are also able to improve access in the rural areas. There are also models being tested about when the AI models exist, that they can run directly on the device without the need for constant connectivity. And then, of course, from the other side, there's growth of renewable energy, in which the bank also invests a lot, that would bring that electricity supply. The next one is the quality of data. We are actually building a small chatbot of our own at the bank, and we learned that any AI system is only as good as the data that you put into it. And that's definitely true for any sort of scale of the AI systems. And in agriculture, most of the data, so on soil, crops, pests, it originates in high-income regions, and then it lacks local nuance. So this creates blind spots in those regional or local contexts, which has big implications, as we see, for example, for the development of the extension services. And then from the other side, there are a variety of governance challenges around data ownership, privacy, equity. This is not necessarily specific to AI, but it's very much relevant to the AI. At the same time, once again, not to finish this on the negative note, there are some interesting initiatives, examples are emerging, where, for example, there is in Ethiopia, there is a coalition of the willing, where sort of the very different stakeholders around the value chain have built this big repository of data that's being used for for development of the AI applications. We ourselves just finalized a big soil health challenge in Kenya, which was an interesting story because it took almost 2 years to bring a variety of different stakeholders to open up their data around soils, fertilizer usage, and so on, both in public and private sectors. So there's been this huge groundwork done, but then the outcome was wonderful. So there were tons of startups that came in also from research institutions and really helped to unlock this data and bring the tools that can help analyze the data and help the governments and the farmers to be more efficient in the use of this data. And then, of course, this is something Mark mentioned, of course, the digital literacy and human capital. It's also not per se AI specific, so it comes to about digital overall. But in terms of like the farmers need to have basic digital literacy, they need to have trust in the devices, they need to understand how this works. What comes is a little bit more AI specific is they need to have specialized data scientists who understand AI, who understand AI applications, how those are built. And those are actually needed. There's a big shortage of those at the global level. So those with the specialization of the AI in agriculture. But then once again, on the more positive side, because farmers around the world are getting more comfortable with using smartphones overall, not necessarily for their farming purposes, the AI applications are also becoming much more user-friendly. And going back to the extension services, the apps that have been developed, they're very intuitive. They talk to you in the local language. You can ask any question you want. So we see this sort of AI slowly going into the farmers' world. So I will finish with this. In terms of what are some key ingredients for creating the enabling environment for the AI proliferation in the ag sector. So there are overall 5 key prerequisites. It's networks, energy, data governance, human capital, and public and private partnerships. And they form an interconnected ecosystem. So strategic investment in one area creates enabling conditions for another one. And secondly, this is a strategic opportunity because by investing deliberately in these prerequisites, and this is relevant for the World Bank, that small in the least developed countries, in the developing countries, this can truly help to bypass the traditional slower developmental path and help those communities, those countries to leapfrog in their development. So with that, let me stop and let me know if there are any questions.
Kateryna, thank you very much indeed. That was possibly one of the most comprehensive introductions that we've had to any of our events like this. To the extent that there are questions, I'm sure there are many burning questions in the room. I'm just going to take the hosts and chairs prerogative of just limiting them to myself and potentially Maria if she wants to come in, just in the interest of time. 2 things come immediately to mind, Kateryna. You gave an overview of opportunities or progress in some of the case studies that you presented. Which of those, whether it's blockchain or farm extension service, do you think could have the biggest impact? And then when you talked about the challenges that are holding us back, let's deal with them as a basket as you put them there. How do we ensure that all the world gets to participate in this transformation that we've got? And by that, I mean that we don't allow AI and digitization to become something that high-income parts of the world have been able to take advantage of, when potentially the impact can be greatest in those growing parts of the world. So if you have a perspective on those 2 questions, that would be great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate those questions. On the first one, I think the evidence is still emerging, and I think the level of impact also depends on where you're looking along the value chain. One thing that I put in slide and then I removed it is what AI, how AI is absolutely transforming research and development. So for example, seed development, how it speeds up the development of the new varieties, and then this newly gained efficiencies, how they move along the value chain. That's just sort of the start of that impactful pathway. For the farmers, I do think that they bring into them this complex information in a very digestible format that's tailored to their local solutions is absolutely priceless. So at the farmer level, especially the smallholder farmer, which the smallholders are feeding the world in some cases, providing a lot of production. So improving productivity for those farmers through that, and that's what we already seen. But then, of course, it's hard to say every node of the value chain is important. So I guess we'll live and we'll see what's going to happen. In terms of addressing the challenges, so I'll respond this with two sort of points. One is importance of investing in the sort of foundations for the development of AI, so digital public infrastructure, foundational data sets. So we see even governments governments understanding this, and we see more investments in going into this to make sure that there are there are data sets, there are data exchange centers, there are farmer registries. There's connection to the global cloud systems for weather predictions, crop monitoring. So we see a lot of that. And what helps here is having these global systems to which countries can fit into, right? And then another one is an important factor is ensuring that there are public and private partnerships that exist on the ground. So most of the cases, actually probably all of the cases I mentioned, it's either driven by private sector or the private sector plays a very important role. So expecting that the government would be able to, by itself, move it forward is unrealistic. So finding and learning from different modalities of this engagement between public and private sector, I think that's one of the ingredients for success. Let me stop there. Thank you.
That's terrific, Kateryna. And I would also say that in some of the work that we've been doing more broadly on how you finance the transition, that collaboration between public and private is essential, and a recognition that there are limits to what government can do, and that it does need the collaboration of private sector and civil society actors in order to be able to help us to progress. Just before I close this part of the section, I don't know, Maria, if you want to comment on anything that you heard from Kateryna, or any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for presentation. I hope you send us. But my question is, what role do you have bank in this process for the future in agriculture? Because it's necessary. Okay, it's necessary to change, but it's necessary money. What role you think there are for bank?
Thank you. I do think that role for the bank is probably threefold, and it's the investment, it's the money that you're referring to also bypass some of the uncertainties and allow the governments to pilot and test some things and scale them in a little safer environment, I should say. Second one, I think important in the developing country context is the knowledge. So this space is developing very rapidly. There are these very good practices emerging, some interesting use cases emerging. So making sure that they are known to different countries. And actually, AI also helps to bring this knowledge closer. And then the convening power, that's something that we do a lot at the bank. So bringing different stakeholders, including those public and private stakeholders in the same room in some countries, that's an achievement in itself. And this is something that World Bank is good at doing in different countries. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much again, Kateryna. Sorry for the technical challenges with the PowerPoint. It goes to show that technology isn't everything and sometimes needs a human touch to move it along. But we very much appreciate your intervention there. And if okay for you, we will circulate the slides to folks here in the room and to others joining online so that they can follow. But please join me in giving a round of applause to Kateryna. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the invitation.